Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am AmalgamAsh, and today I'm here to do two things. First, remind you that rpginabox is free through the Epic Games Store from today until December 8th. If you've ever been curious about the engine and you've wanted to jump right in, or the demo, which has always been available and free, wasn't enough to convince you to justify a purchase of the engine, or this is the first time you're hearing about it, now is a fantastic time to get the engine for free, and it'll be subject to all of the future updates. You'll still have the full version after the promotional period is over. You'll just have it. It will be free, the end. Of course, if you do decide that the engine is the greatest thing for your project, it's the perfect fit for what you're trying to do, you can always support the developer through Patreon, or go purchase the engine again through itch.io or Steam. And the second thing that I'm here to do today is read over the release notes for version 1.0.6 of rpginabox, because even though it's just supposed to be a patch release, it's an enormous release. There are a ton of features and updates here and there, and somebody in the Discord very validly asked why this wasn't a major update. Version 1.1, Justin just replied, because I didn't want to run out of numbers. However you decide to get the engine, you've got to join the Discord. It's always linked in the description below, and it's one of the most chill, fun, helpful, and kind communities I've ever had a privilege of being part of. We'll waste no further time. Here are the release notes for version 1.0.6 from Justin yesterday at 6:37 a.m. because I'm just very slow. New features and changes. Added initial implementation of the effect editor for creating particle effects. This means that we can create flames, fountains, weather, environmental effects, visual status indicators, etc. Naturally, the next several parts of the update have to do with this. Added attach effect scripting function for attaching a particle effect to an entity's attach point, and detach effect scripting function for detaching a particle effect from an entity. Added add effect scripting function for adding a particle effect at a coordinate with optional entity ID. Added disable effect scripting function for disabling the emission of particles for an effect. Added enable effect scripting function for enabling the emission of particles for an effect. So right here, right now, we have the ability to say, walk up to entities and have our players push a button that would represent them lighting a torch, or picking up a torch and then determining whether or not that torch is lit or unlit. Going outside, and if a random number is generated on a timer that affects the weather, then it begins to rain. These are just some of the thousands of examples that are possible, so let's just move on. Add item to tile, visual script node to the script editor for placing an item drop onto a tile that the player can pick up. That should simplify a couple of things for me. Added delete data visual script node to the script editor for deleting a custom data file that was previously saved to disk via the save data function, and added delete save visual script node to the script editor for deleting a saved game. Added give loot visual script node to the script editor for generating items for a loot drop, then giving them to a specified character. Added give skill visual script node to the script editor for giving a skill to a character. This defaults to the main player character. Added remove skill visual script node to the script editor for removing a skill from a character. This defaults to the main player character. And added use skill visual script node to the script editor for triggering the usage of a skill for a character. But wait, there's so much more. Added cooldown roguelike in parentheses there to the stats editor for configuring the cooldown of a skill when it is used in roguelike mode. This is measured in actions. That sounds amazing. Added 2 new status effect types to the stats editor. One is healing over time. The other is damage over time for applying healing and damage at intervals. Yes, that's awesome. Added ability to specify both real-time and roguelike interval for status effects in the stats editor. That is measured on seconds and actions respectively. Added support for global functions that can be called from any script. This is configured from the Global Functions tab in the Game Configuration dialog. Added footstep sound and footstep rate settings to the voxel editor for characters. Sounds are played positionally. Rate is in footsteps per second. We now have footsteps that we can put on things. Or I guess actually footsteps that we can apply for our characters. Added ability to freely rotate objects in the map editor from the entity properties panel instead of being locked to 90-degree increments. This is a big one. This is going to make your maps really pop. And you don't have to use it. You can actually still stick with the 90-degree turns if you wish and keep that sort of retro flair. Added display image scripting function for displaying an image to the player. Added image stretch mode constraints for scripting. That means we can now use stretch X, where X is either scale, tile, keep centered, keep aspect centered, or keep aspect covered. Added play video scripting function for playing video files. Supported formats are WebM and OGV, and they can be imported by dragging and dropping onto the application. So this is where things start to get a little crazy. This actually turns rpginabox into an engine that is now facilitative of visual novels, visual novel creation specifically, so that you can jump in here and begin to create scenes using these different display image scripting functions with their scales. And the ability to play video now gives us all kinds of cinematic options. This is nuts. Added open container scripting function for manually triggering the opening of an item container within the current map. Added quests syntax to the Boxite language for getting an array of quest IDs for a character, like player quests. Added global.theme scripting variable for changing the current UI theme. That's cool. That means that we could now give our players the ability to change the theme of the UI if we so choose, for them to so choose. Added system.time scripting variable for getting current time from the OS. This returns a codex with hour, minute, and second values. This means that you could, theoretically, change things about your game depending on what time of day it is in real life. Very cool. Very, very cool. It may seem very basic, but this is functionality that really opens up the kinds of games that we can make. Added Boxite scripting syntax for getting an effect attached to an attached point. Added effect scripting constant for checking if an entity is an effect. Added substir scripting function for getting part of a string. That's very good for people who like to play with variables, specifically strings. Added len scripting function for getting the length of a string, size of an array, or number of keys in a codex. Again, very, very helpful for people who need to be able to have string variable functionality for their games. Added quest ID syntax for getting quest properties based on ID, specifically name, description, or tags. Added portrait property for characters to Boxite scripting syntax. For example, player.portrait to get or change the portrait. Null will clear the portrait. Added two-dimensional setting for objects in the voxel editor in order to prevent the rotation of vehicle objects when needed. Added entity script setting to disable the automatic playing of the initiating character's interact animation. Added default and move directional animation names for use by vehicles with the two-dimensional setting enabled. Added effect editor as a default tab option on the editor settings dialog to have it active by default on application startup. Added two new project templates to the game manager. Mini Caves of ZZT and Kenny Tiny Dungeon 2D, and added their associated assets to the asset library. That's a huge win. Being able to open up these projects, explore how they work, change bits and pieces, that gives us immediate satisfaction, immediate reward, immediate gratification. Excellent job. There's more. Added assets previously exclusive to the Patreon, to the built-in asset library. That's 147 tiles, 55 objects, and 8 characters. That is beautiful. As a backer myself, I feel like that is great. You know me, I want to be able to open up the floodgates and give everybody everything they need to do the things that they want to do. While I think timed exclusivity is great, it acts as a bonus and an incentive to support a project. Being able to, at some point, open this stuff up and release them to the public, that's awesome. I love it. Added several music tracks by Alex Ramon to the asset library, including The Adventure Begins, the official rpginabox theme song. We need to go listen to that. That's great. And added shore corners, water with shore at two opposite corners, to the asset library for use in the default example game. There's more. But wait, there's even more. Added Italian translations for the editor interface and in-game text. Updated roguelike mode to also consider interacting with objects and characters as an action, such as opening a door or pulling a lever, etc. Updated the controls section in the game configuration dialog to split out the movement and interaction options. Updated the description field in the quest editor to be a multi-line text field instead of being limited to one line. Awesome. Updated the color data type to support optional alpha value. Heck yes. For example, color 0, 255, 0, 128 is green with a 50% transparency level. Updated the error message for the equip item scripting function to be more descriptive. For example, character needs item in inventory, but the slot doesn't exist, etc. Updated the enable container and disable container functions to allow direct entity references instead of only an entity ID. Updated coordinate values in visual script nodes, such as the move camera function, to allow decimals for more precise positioning. Updated string scripting function to return null when the value is null instead of throwing an error to the debug console. Updated the request coordinate and request entity functionality to disable mouse input for widgets while requesting a value. Updated Bauxite scripting syntax to support Korean characters when used inside of text strings. Updated default example game project template to include an auto tile configuration for the grass and water tiles. Updated filtering functionality in the asset library to no longer be case sensitive when searching for tags. Updated Patreon credits in the About dialog to only reflect the patrons who are currently active for each tier. And many, many bug fixes, including fixed an issue with transparent surfaces of models showing through billboard sprite characters and objects, fixed an issue with death animations not properly triggering for billboard sprite characters when defeated, fixed an issue with camera positioning that could occur when loading a map and the camera had been previously locked, fixed an issue with setting an image element's image on a widget to null, not properly clearing the image. There are a lot of bug fixes, actually. I'll skip the rest of those. You can always check it out in the Discord, again, linked in the description below. However, there are updates to the documentation, and I will mention those. Updated tutorials, built-in docs to include YouTube links for Stumpy's How to Make a Game series and Sarah's tutorial series. Updated character built-in docs to include convenience variables which get tiles relative to a character. Updated codex built-in docs to include an example of how to modify an existing value within a codex. And updated climbing built-in docs to fix an issue with the known issue text being cut off. When I set out to make a video covering the updates, I didn't mean for it to be this long, but that's just how big this update actually is. Hours and hours and hours of just love-driven work have gone into this update, and we've only got a ton more things to look forward to. This is why rpginabox is an engine that Oh, hello. Justin, today at 8:39 a.m., release notes for version 1.0.6.1. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, it looks like I did the video just in time. We'll go over these 4 updates, and of course there are 5 issues that have been fixed as well already pertaining to the above. But Justin has just added positional sound setting to the voxel editor for specifying that an animation's sound effect should be played positionally in 3D space. That is a setting, you don't have to use it, but it's awesome that it's there. He also added apply status effect scripting function for applying a status effect to a character for a duration of time. That's so good. That's so good. Added remove status effect scripting function for removing a status effect from a character, and added clear status effects scripting function for clearing all the status effects from a character. So now we can use our cure all items in rpginabox projects in order to let our players relieve themselves of all of those pesky status effects that they're suffering. Or use a spell that will clear the buffs, the status effects that the enemy is using on themselves. Really, there's just a ton of use cases for this sort of thing. I'm so glad that happened while I was recording. That is too cool. Too cool. Am I being spied on right now? Now I'm paranoid. But I'm paranoid in a box. That's not a very good, All right, if you've made it this far, I have a special treat for you. It is an article written by Natalie Lawhead. It is linked in the description below. It should have been mentioned probably closer to the beginning of the video, but if you went to the links in the description below, you would have found it. So, good job, sleuths. It's really a lovely article written by somebody who has designed and made games, and the way that they talk about it is really, really nice. Anyway, it just gives another perspective on the engine, and it's definitely worth a read, so I would encourage you to check that out. And the absolute most favorite quote of mine from the article appears near the top. It's the type of tool that you root for. But no other spoilers, so go check that out. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye for now.